Imagine, for a moment, that your thoughts are not random, but ripples in the fabric of a far greater sea. Each fear, each hope, each quiet, achy, not a flaw in your design, but a note in a divine composition. What if the silence you dread is not emptiness, but the pause between celestial chords? The ancients knew this. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus. They listened not to noise, but to the music beneath it. They did not escape suffering. They studied it like scholars of the soul, knowing pain itself is a doorway to wisdom. You are not broken, nor are you lost. You are being shaped, note by note, into a song only the universe can fully hear. In hacking your mind, you are not rewriting destiny. You are remembering it. So breathe and look again. Life is not happening to you. It is happening through you. You are not apart from the cosmos. You are its awakening. Have you ever sat alone in a room so quiet you could hear the weight of your own thoughts? Not the noise, not the chatter, the scrolling, the craving, but the subtle pulse beneath it all, that peculiar stillness that feels like both a void and a doorway. Most people run from it. They fear what they might find when the world stops moving and the lights go dim. But the ancient Stoics, they leaned into it. Epictetus, once a slave, knew better than most that freedom is not granted by society, but discovered within. He taught that true power lies in our response to life, not in the circumstances, but in how we meet them. And so in stillness, we meet ourselves. We meet the truth of what is unadorned. Silence becomes the field where the soul speaks, not with words, but with knowing. You see, silence isn't empty. It's full of clarity, if you dare to listen. In the quiet, you can hear the friction between who you are and who you pretend to be. You can feel the tension of chasing desires that don't belong to you, of wearing masks so long you forgot what your real face looked like. And in that raw recognition, something remarkable happens. The mind begins to soften. The inner judge grows quiet. The fog lifts. It's a strange kind of alchemy. What happens in stillness? The very things we fear about it are the things we most need. We fear the H of solitude, yet it's the cradle of self-awareness. We fear boredom, yet it births insight. We fear being alone, yet we are never truly alone. Not when we are connected to the great hum that pulses through every atom of existence. And this isn't about withdrawing from life, no. It's about becoming deeply present to it. It's about seeing, really seeing, that every breath you take, every leaf that rustles, every fleeting moment of peace or pain is part of something vast, something sacred. The Stoics didn't meditate to escape the world. They meditated to understand their place within it. They knew that silence isn't a retreat, it's a return. A return to what is real, what is unchanging beneath the surface of our turbulent emotions. When you sit in stillness, you begin to see your thoughts not as facts, but as clouds drifting across a vast inner sky. You learn not to clutch them, not to argue with them, but to observe. And in that space between reaction and awareness, something ancient stirs. The soul remembers. It remembers that it was never the storm. It was the sky. The world today teaches you to respond, to react, to fill every gap with noise and distraction. But what if the gaps are the point? What if the pauses, the spaces between the notes, are what give life its music? The Stoics understood this. They lived it. And if you listen closely, you'll hear it too, in the silence between your heartbeats, in the quiet presence of the now. You don't need to fix everything. You don't need to become something more. You simply need to listen. For within you, there is already a quiet place where the noise stops, and in that space you are not broken. You are not lost. You are whole. You are already home. And so I leave you with this. The silence you run from is not your enemy. It is your original self, waiting patiently to be heard. There's a certain elegance to the way life tests us, not through random suffering, but through precisely the experiences we need to awaken. Of course, it rarely feels that way in the moment. Pain feels cruel. Failure feels personal. Loss feels like the unraveling of something essential. But the ancient Stoics saw this differently. They understood that the universe does not conspire to hurt us, it conspires to shape us. Marcus Aurelius, ruler of the vast Roman Empire, once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He wasn't offering a clever slogan. He was pointing toward a hidden law of nature, that resistance, when embraced, becomes transformation. That which blocks you is not your enemy, it is your teacher in disguise. Now, reflect on that for a moment. Think about the times in your life that truly changed you. Not the easy days, not the victories, but the friction. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the confusion, the uncertainty. These moments brought you to your knees, yes, but they also introduced you to parts of yourself you never knew existed. Strength you hadn't accessed before. Patience you never thought you had. Depths of awareness that only pain could carve out. It's almost as if life, in its great wisdom, withholds certain awakenings until we've been broken open enough to receive them. Just as fire tempers steel, adversity refines the soul. But this isn't about glorifying struggle. It's not about pretending pain is pleasant. It's about seeing it clearly, as something purposeful, something sacred. The Stoics didn't chase suffering, but neither did they run from it. They invited it to sit at the table. They asked it what it came to teach. And in doing so, they hacked a deeper code within the human experience. The realization that growth isn't found in avoiding discomfort, but in the way we meet it. Most people spend their lives resisting what is, fighting the current, cursing the storm. But what if the storm was the very thing that set you free? What if the obstacle wasn't in the way, but was the way? That perspective changes everything. Suddenly, life isn't happening to you. It's happening for you. The breakdown becomes the breakthrough. The wound becomes the womb of rebirth. And maybe that's what pain is at its core. A divine sculptor chiseling away at the false layers we've wrapped ourselves in. Our ego, our illusions, our grasping. When these fall away, what remains is something more real, more whole, more connected. The ancient ones knew this. They saw the universe not as chaos, but as order, a kind of cosmic intelligence that gives us not what we want, but what we need to evolve. Even the smallest frustrations, when viewed through this lens, become opportunities for awakening. That missed train, that difficult conversation, that unexpected detour, each holds a lesson, an invitation to become more present, more conscious, more compassionate. Nothing is wasted, nothing is random, it all belongs. And so the question is not, why is this happening to me? But rather, what is this asking of me? How is this shaping the soul I'm here to become? When we stop resisting the pain and start listening to it, a strange thing happens. We begin to feel gratitude, not in spite of the struggle, but because of it. We begin to see that every hardship is a hidden blessing, every failure a sacred redirection, every wound a whisper from the divine. So if you are hurting now, if you are lost, if you are facing something that feels insurmountable, don't run. Don't numb. Sit with it. Breathe into it. Let it teach you. Let it change you. Because in truth, the obstacle was never in your way. It was carving the path home to yourself. There's a curious peace that comes when you finally stop trying to control everything with Not the weak surrender of someone who has given up, but the wise letting go of one who finally sees the futility in clenching their fists at the wind. With. The ancient Stoics spoke often of this, the art of surrender, not as resignation but as harmony. With. They understood that much of our suffering doesn't come from what happens, but from our insistence that it shouldn't be happening. But with. Seneca once said, fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling. It's a line often misunderstood. With. He wasn't advocating blind obedience to life. He was pointing toward a deeper intelligence, one that moves through all things with, shaping them not according to our desires, but according to the quiet logic of nature. And in recognizing that logic, with, we come into alignment with it. You see, most of us live our lives like swimmers thrashing against the current, exhausting ourselves trying to direct the river. We set expectations, cling to outcomes, and panic when things diverge from the path we plotted out. But the Stoics would ask you, whose path are you clinging to? With. Is it the one carved by your soul, or the one built from fear and the need to control? The river does not consult the stone before it flows. It does not apologize for changing course. And yet, it always arrives, always carves something beautiful along the way. In the same way, your life, in all its twists and turns, is not an accident. It's a movement, a flowing expression of something infinitely larger than your plans. The more you try to lock it into place, with, the more it slips through your fingers. But when you yield, when you allow yourself to float with it, something remarkable happens. You begin to feel held, supported, not in a way that removes all pain, but in a way that transforms how you carry it. With. You start to see that control was never safety. It was armor, and like all armor, it keeps out the very life you're meant to feel. To surrender is to soften, to step into trust. Not blind trust in outcomes, but trust in the unfolding, in the intelligence behind it all. The Stoics called it logos, the divine reason, the order of things. With. It is not something you can always understand, but it is something you can sense. But with. Like the way a tree leans toward the sun, or the way your breath knows how to return even after you forget it. With. This isn't about passivity. It's not about sitting idly by while life happens around you. With. It's about recognizing where your will ends and the greater dance begins. You do what you can with what you have, but with. And then you release. You stop demanding that life obey your commands and begin listening for its cues. And from that place, a deeper clarity arises. You act, but without tension. You move, but without force. You love without condition. With. And you begin to notice a peculiar thing. The more you let go, the more life meets you with grace. With. The very things you were chasing begin to find you. With. Not because you grasped harder, but because you finally became still enough to receive them. With. This is what it means to live in rhythm with the Tao, with nature, with the great pattern. Not as a controller of outcomes, but as a participant in a far greater design, one that has been guiding stars, shaping oceans, and breathing through you since the very beginning. So perhaps, rather than asking, how do I control my life, the better question is, how do I trust its unfolding? Because in the end, you were never meant to grip the current. You were meant to remember you are the river flowing home. Look closely, and you'll begin to notice. There is no such thing as a truly isolated event. A leaf falls, and somewhere a seed awakens. With. A star collapses in one corner of the universe, and life stirs in another. Everything touches everything else. With. It's all part of the same dance, the same breath, moving through 1,000 different forms. And yet, so often, we move through life as if we are separate, as if we are cut off from the whole, like strangers to the very world that birthed us. But the Stoics, they didn't see it this way. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly, with, you are a part of the whole. Not a foot detached from the body, but a thread in the fabric, woven through with meaning. But to forget that is to suffer. To remember it is to wake up. When you realize that you are not apart from life, but of it. Not merely watching the unfolding, but being the unfolding. Something shifts inside. The small dramas lose their grip. With the need to prove, to dominate, to win begins to dissolve. Because you start to sense that you're not a solitary figure pushing against the world. You are the world, discovering itself in human form. This changes how you see your pain, your purpose, your presence. The challenges that once felt like cruel punishments now begin to feel like the universe reshaping itself through you. The choices you make ripple outward in ways you may never see. The kindness you offer, the silence you hold, the truth you speak. All of it echoes beyond your little life, into the lives of others, and into the soul of the world itself. The Stoics didn't believe in self-improvement for its own sake, they believed in inner transformation because they saw the self as a reflection of the cosmos. To refine the self was to harmonize with nature. To master the mind was to contribute to the health of the whole. Your inner state is not a private affair, it's your offering to the collective. And so your existence, right here, right now, is not random. You are not an accident floating in an indifferent void. You are a necessary note in the grand symphony, a pattern within the pattern. Your breath is borrowed from stars, your thoughts shaped by generations of unseen ancestors, your heartbeat in rhythm with the pulse of creation. When you begin to live with that awareness, everything becomes sacred. The mundane becomes miraculous. Washing the dishes is no longer a chore, it's communion. Walking down the street is not just motion, it's participation. Even your suffering, even your confusion, carries significance, because every part of the journey, even the shadowed parts, is contributing to something far larger than you. We've been told a lie, you see, that the self is small, that life is meaningless, that connection is optional. But it's not. The truth is, you've never been alone. You've never been outside the great unfolding. You've always been it. And the more deeply you remember that, the more beautifully you begin to live. You start to live not just for yourself, but through yourself. As a vessel, a voice, a flicker of awareness within the universe becoming conscious of itself. You smile, and the cosmos smiles with you. You fall, and the stars make room for your descent. You rise, and all of nature rises with you. So perhaps the question isn't, who am I in this vast world? But rather, what is the world trying to become through me? Because in the stillness, beneath the noise, you will find the truth was never far. You are not a separate thread. You are the tapestry, remembering itself.